Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. This Saturday marks the biggest day in all of college football with the start of the college football playoff. And of course, we will have our predictions and our breakdown of those two semifinal games on a completely separate video. Before we can get to that, we have to break down the three games beforehand, starting with our first New Year's Six bowl game, number 10 Florida taking on number 7 Michigan in the Peach Bowl. In this game, the third meeting between these two squads since 2016, Michigan annihilating Florida both times in the 2016 Citrus Bowl and the 2017 season opener, and what will happen this year in the Peach Bowl with a completely different Florida team, a completely different style from what we saw those two previous meetings under Jim McElwain. I predict this game to be a very strong defensive slugfest between these two squads. Florida ranking 27th in the nation in yards allowed and 21st in the nation in scoring defense, allowing just 20.4 points per game. Michigan, on the other hand, has the #1 overall defense in the nation in terms of yards allowed, allowing just 262.5 yards per game, and they rank number 12 in the nation in scoring defense with just 17.6 points allowed on the year. So this is going to be a very strong defensive performance from both squads. And we'll start over here with Florida, led by their strong defensive end, Ja'Kai Polite, who has 11 sacks on the year, 5 forced fumbles, and 16 tackles for a loss. So that's going to be huge in this game to see if Polite can still generate that type of success against a Michigan offensive line that will be a little bit battered without offensive tackle Jawan Bushell-Beatty, who also did not play against Ohio State, but not having him for this bowl game against Florida will still hurt the Wolverines a little bit up front. Overall, though, Dan Mullen has come in, as I mentioned, and really transformed this Florida offense. You know, Jim McElwain never could find himself a quarterback, could never generate much of an offense. They always had a fairly solid defense with McElwain at Florida, but never could get that offense going. Mullen comes in his first year, gets the Gators from a 4-7 record under McElwain to a 9-3 record in his first year there, and gets the offense scoring 34.5 points per game this year. And not only do they score a lot of points, they're an extremely balanced offense. 217 passing yards on average per game to 209.5 rushing yards on average per game. And I will come out and say that I believe Felipe Franks gets a very bad rap at quarterback for Florida. Yes, he has been inconsistent at times in his career with the Gators. Yes, has been a little inconsistent this year with the Gators, but he has taken major strides under Dan Mullen, who we know is a quarterback whisperer. Developed some great quarterbacks at Mississippi State, developed some great quarterbacks as offensive coordinator at Florida, and has done the same here with Felipe Franks this season. I think he gets a very bad rap and is very, in my opinion, underrated in the SEC. I do not think he's a bad quarterback at all, but he's going to have a very tough test going up against a very, very strong Michigan defense. So if Florida cannot get the passing game going, they're going to have to rely on their star running back in Michael Pirine, who, like I said, they're averaging 209.5 rushing yards per game. That's not all on Pirine, but they still has a very dominant rushing game. So will they be able to get that offense going against this Michigan defense, who's coming off, as we mentioned, a very, very devastating loss back in the season finale to Ohio State? They win that game, they go to the Big Ten Championship, they more than likely go to the college football playoff. In that game, they allowed, I think, 62 points to the Buckeyes. So will Michigan be able to rebound, especially defensively, against this Florida squad? For the Wolverines, though, they're going to be a little short-handed across the board, both on defense and on offense. We already mentioned the loss of their star offensive tackle and Bushell-Beatty. They're also going to be without their leading rusher and Karan Higdon, who is going to be sitting out for the NFL draft, along with star defensive players Rashawn Gary and Devin Bush. So, and we've mentioned before how I feel about these players sitting out. I do get the reasoning. They don't want to risk injury before they go into the NFL draft. They don't want to risk ending their career or anything like that. I get it. I totally understand it. And yes, this is a New Year's Six bowl game. It's one of the upper-level bowl games, but it's still not the college football playoff. You can make a case saying that every bowl is meaningless except for the playoff. Someone could say that. I would disagree with that, but I think I understand where these players are coming from, but I am a little disappointed that we're not going to get to see some of these players out on the field for their final games. So how will Michigan respond? Losing two major players up front on offense, their star running back and an offensive tackle, and how they respond losing some of their star defensive players in Bush and Gary. I still think Michigan's still going to have enough production on both sides of the ball to get the job done against Florida. Your defense cannot be consisted of just two players. You can't make the excuse saying, oh, we let up this play, we let up that play because we didn't have these players, whether they're hurt, whether they're sitting out, what have you. Michigan still has one of the better defenses despite not having Rashawn Gary and Devin Bush, and I think they get the job done against the Florida offense. I think we'll struggle at first and then Michigan will just take care of it from there. Michigan as well on offense, not to be ashamed of anything over there. Still have a star quarterback in Shea Patterson, the transfer, as we all know. Didn't have the best year. Thought he was a little got too much hype coming into the season. Over 2,300 yards and 21 touchdowns on the year, and he will be returning next year for the Wolverines. So hopefully this will be a way for the Wolverines to capitalize on this after back-to-back devastating bowl losses 2 years ago in the Orange Bowl to Florida State, last year to South Carolina. They get their third straight win over Florida in the first New Year's Six Bowl of the 2018 postseason. Moving down to South Carolina versus Virginia in the Belk Bowl. Unfortunately, I don't think this game will live up to what the Belk Bowl was last year. Wake Forest 55-52 shootout against Texas A&M, but we still have a chance to see a fairly high-scoring game and a fun one here in an SEC-ACC matchup. This game kicking off at 11 o'clock Central Time, and I will say with it being in North Carolina, I can expect to see a lot of fans from both sides here. I don't think either team's going to have a very strong home field advantage or more fans from one team than the other. I mean, it's a very neutral site for South Carolina and Virginia here. And we'll start over here with the Gamecocks. Like Michigan, going to be losing one of their star players in Deebo Samuel. So they already he's going to be sitting out for the NFL draft as well. So they lose a star wide receiver there, their leading wide receiver, I should add, and a very dangerous special teams threat for the Gamecocks. So that's going to be a major blow for them. But they still have one of the better quarterbacks in all of the SEC, and Jake Bentley, who had completed 63.9% of his passes, which if you know your stats at quarterback is not too bad at all, especially going up against some of these SEC defenses. And even in the season finale, their loss to Clemson, but lost by 21, I believe, he threw for 510 yards and 5 touchdowns. And Clemson supposed to be one of the better defenses in the entire nation. Of course, we'll address that when we do our playoff predictions, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that. But Bentley, 27 touchdowns on the year, nearly 3,000 yards through the air, and he has spearheaded this offense that's averaging 32.6 points per game. So South Carolina really hit their stride towards the end of the season after the halfway point. Struggled a little bit early on, especially offensively. Really found kind of their identity later on. But Virginia has a very strong secondary. So will they be able to shut down this South Carolina passing attack? And if they do, they will rely on Rico Dowdle, their star running back, who really is averaging about 157 yards. Or I'm sorry, excuse me, Virginia's defense is only allowing 157 rushing yards per game. So this Virginia defense, I think, is extremely underrated. If they take away Jake Bentley, will Dowdle be able to get enough generating on the ground to get some points up against this Virginia defense? That's something we're going to have to keep our eye on. Will Muschamp usually performs well in bowl games. South Carolina has won 5 of their past 6, including that comeback win over Michigan last year. Virginia over here, Bronco Mendenhall certainly proved me wrong. I did not have very high expectations for the Cavaliers. Coming off fresh off a bowl appearance last year, Mendenhall's, I believe, second year. He comes in here with Virginia not winning a bowl game since 2005. But I've been very impressed with the fact that he got them back to a bowl game this year. Back-to-back bowl appearances, a 7-5 record. But the biggest question is, can Virginia bounce back? They lost 3 of their last 4 games, were in contention for winning the ACC Coastal Division, which ended up going to Pittsburgh, who ultimately lost to Clemson in the ACC title game. But they lost their last 2 games to Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech, both by 3 points in overtime. And that Virginia Tech game hurting a lot more than any other, continuing the Hokie streak over the Cavaliers to 15 straight games for the Hokies. So will Virginia be able to kind of get their mindset back in the right place, knowing that they still have a chance to capture an 8-win season, knowing they have a chance to capture their first bowl win since 2005? How will Bronco Mendenhall rally his troops to try to get a win over a solid SEC squad here? As I mentioned, they have a very strong secondary. They have Bryce Hall, who leads that secondary, over 20 pass breakups on the year, so very impressive by him. That's going to be the key, is shutting down this passing attack led by Jake Bentley, despite not even having Deebo Samuel. Their defense allows just 21.8 points per game and allowed us 180 passing yards. So they still, perform very well in the regular season, but the SEC, especially the South Carolina offense, is a different type of breed. So how will Virginia respond here? I think South Carolina gets a close win in the Belk Bowl over the Cavaliers, and unfortunately that's going to be back-to-back bowl losses and back-to-back appearances for Bronco Mendenhall and his troops. Then down here, our final game before the college football playoff kicks off, I believe at 3 o'clock Central Time with Clemson and Notre Dame. Arkansas State and Nevada out in the Arizona Bowl. And obviously a game that if you're not an A-State fan or a Nevada fan, you're probably not going to pay that much attention to. This game kicking off around 12:15 Central Time. These two games kicking off around 11 o'clock Central Time, and one that many people just aren't going to care about, especially on a day as big as this. But we're still going to address it. We're still going to predict it, and we're going to start over here with Arkansas State, a team that many predicted to win the Sun Belt Western Division. Of course, the Sun Belt moving to a division format and actually implementing a conference championship game this year. And this was a division that many thought Arkansas State had for the taking, just couldn't get the job done. But they were a battle-tested team. I think that's going to be very key going into this game against Nevada. Their 4 losses on the year are to Alabama, Georgia Southern, who did win their bowl game against Eastern Michigan, Appalachian State, who won their bowl game against Middle Tennessee and was Sun Belt Conference champions, and then Louisiana, who made a bowl game this year, ultimately lost to Tulane, but were also the Sun Belt runner-ups and the winner of the Sun Belt Western Division over Arkansas State. So they have faced some very good teams, 3 conference foes, and obviously Alabama, who have really prepared Arkansas State, I think, for this postseason. And also, you have to keep in mind, A-State has been to a bowl game every year since 2012. So they are a very experienced team when it comes to bowl season. I'm very excited to see Blake Anderson and his squad go up against this Nevada team. They're going to be led by Justice Hanson, who has completed 67% of his passes. Obviously a very good number for the senior quarterback, trying to go out and get a bowl win in his final game as a Red Wolf. He's thrown for over 3,000 yards and 27 touchdowns. The biggest thing, many people don't give Sun Belt credit for having defense. A-State does have a defense, and has certainly found that defense over the last part of the season. They ended the year on a 4-game winning streak, and over those last 4 games, they had allowed an average of just 13.5 points per game. So this is going to be huge for Arkansas State. Going up against the Nevada squad, led by another solid quarterback, and Ty Ganji, who has also thrown for over 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns. These two teams are extremely similar. They rely on the home run ball. They rely on solid quarterback play. This has the chance to be an offensive shootout out west in the desert in Arizona. The biggest thing for Ty Ganji, though, is can he take care of the football? He's thrown for 11 interceptions this year, including 3 interceptions against UNLV in the season finale, a game which the Wolfpack lost. Arkansas State beating UNLV at home in Jonesboro early on the season, back in September. So can Nevada take care of the football and go back and forth with the Red Wolves in this game? I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think this game has the chance to go back and forth, but I think in the end the Red Wolves of the Sun Belt get a key win out in Arizona to clinch a 9-win season, something that Blake Anderson has done a phenomenal job leading this Red Wolves team, making them contenders not just in the Sun Belt but also in postseason play. So can't wait to watch this one. As I said, it's football. You're going to want to watch it, and it's going to be the last game right before the college football playoffs, so at least it will get you there, especially if the Belt Bowl and the Peach Bowl don't turn out to be good games, although I think they will. So Saturday, it's going to be an epic day of college football. Make sure you stay tuned for our college football playoff predictions. Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, Oklahoma, all coming right here at the Gridiron Expert. We're going to break down a video and predictions solely just for those 2 games, and you're not going to want to miss it. And also make sure you continue to check Twitter for our spread picks. We're doing fairly well there right now. Our goal is to stay above 500. We're doing that, so make sure you continue to check that out. Maybe place a couple bets on us. And as always, please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.